Marching Band. For your halftime entertainment, we celebrate the 43-year reign of the Speed Metal Kings, Metallica. With 9 Grammy Awards and 14 nominations, 38 concert tours worldwide, 11 studio albums that span 4 decades, the Titans of Thrash remain the standard by which all other metal is measured. We begin with a 1984 classic from their second album, For Whom the Bell Tolls, followed by the 1992 tour anthem, Wherever I May Roam. And then, let's turn down the house and light up the stage for the Auburn University Marching Band and their show, Metallica.
Auburn versus Chattanooga is in the books, playing in State Farm Arena here in Atlanta, Georgia. We're going to talk about it. This is our post-game reaction show where we're going to talk about the score, the stats, the storylines, all of that encompassed here in our post-game live stream reaction show. Let's get into it, what we have to say, and you, right now. War Eagle, and welcome to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we get together, we sit down, and we discuss, we share the Auburn experience, all about Auburn sports, Auburn culture, Auburn family stuff. An easier way to say it, though, is if it's orange and blue, it is what we do. So thank you so much for joining us and what we're going to be doing today here in our live Q&A time here. Not live Q&A time. Well, I guess we're going to have a little bit of a Q&A time. As you can tell, I'm in a different location, thrown off just a little bit during our live reaction show for post-game Auburn men's basketball, Auburn versus Chattanooga in the holiday hoops giving event in Atlanta, Georgia State Farm Arena. The Auburn Tigers are victorious 92-78. There are a lot of things to discuss from this game in terms of obviously the stats and the stories. There's a storyline amongst the program right now in terms of roster management that we need to discuss. We'll do that towards the end of everything, or it may come up naturally throughout our discussion today. I certainly want to go acknowledge that's something that will be discussed here at some point during the show. And then, of course, we want to just hear from you all. Obviously, this is about our reactions to everything. We want to hear from you guys, those of you that are watching live. Speaking of, if you are watching live, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. If you haven't hit the like button or the share button already, that's a huge help. Lets people know that we're live, lets people know to come back and check it out, the replay. If you're on the replay, you can do the same thing for us. So help us out, help yourselves out as well, helping us grow the best little family within the Auburn family. And you can help us in those different ways today. All right, so the drill is, for those of you, first of all, let me acknowledge I am in not my normal location. Sound quality, video quality, connection quality might be a little bit different at times tonight. Let us know if we have any issues with that here in the chat, and we can try to manage as best we can. We probably will be at this location from time to time during basketball season if it's something that has to happen for me just for travel reasons, but it should be pretty manageable. So just a little bit of housekeeping to start the day. These are much easier to do when we have Auburn wins, which we do today, Auburn over Chattanooga. Who is your player of the game? Let me know. You've probably got a pretty good idea of who those higher candidates are going to be based off of who scored what, who, gave you most points, those type of things. We'd love to hear from you all in terms of who you thought your player of the game was for Auburn versus Chattanooga in that 92-78 win. The rest of our stream, we're going to be going through individual stats first, then team stats, and amongst that, all the different storylines that need to be discussed throughout that, especially those are the ones that you're wanting us to dive into in any detail. So don't be shy in the chat on the live portion if you want some of that. So let's start with the individual ones. And actually, before I do that, acknowledge this is the holiday hoops giving event. So most of you are aware they've been following Auburn basketball. They've been playing in this thing for like the last, it feels like 4 or 5 years, but I'm sure there was a year gap or something like that where they missed one. Typically, there's a higher profile name opponent attached to this. The story that I understood it was that there was a higher profile team that was supposed to play Auburn in this, but they backed out. Thus, Auburn had to schedule Chattanooga. Now, once again, I know you hear from me this a lot, and it's not just me trying to make things sound more palatable or anything like that. Auburn tends to go after these mid-majors that are either the reigning or expected to be the champions competing for the championship of their respective conference if they're going to be scheduling these guys. We saw that with Bethune-Cookman early in the year with that little bit of a scare that everybody got all worried about. We obviously see that here with Chattanooga. You can see that they've got some talent. They've been a program that's had some talent previously enough to get them, some postseason recognition. So just putting that out there to start off with. So if you've got a player of the game, let's hear from you. WT says player of the game for me is Pettiford for that in-your-face 3 to end the game after they thought they were going to be cute with the dunk. Yeah, certainly you want your leaders, if there's going to be messages sent the other way, that they're going to send them right back. Obviously, the 3 at the end wasn't necessary, but certainly it capitalizes. He capitalizes off of it and brings his margin of scoring much closer to somebody else here in a second because of that 3. So good nights by the 2 people that you would expect to have the good nights, the most scoring for Auburn, that being Keyshawn Hall, that being Tahad Pettiford. Can we go ahead and, even though he's not the leading scorer tonight, let's start there. The big storyline has been for a while now, Tahad Pettiford loves to play on the road, neutral sites, or true road games, but at home he's been pretty quiet. Well, it continues. Like, I think there was one home game where he had like 15 or 16, something like that. Every road game, neutral or otherwise, he has done outstanding in terms of scoring, or at least to what we expect a Tahad Pettiford scoring to do. So his tonight's stat line is 20 points, 5 for 11 from the field, 5 for 9 from the 3-point arc, 5 for 6 from the free throw line, 1 rebound, 2 assists, 3 personal fouls, 3 turnovers in 30 minutes of play. So pretty solid for him. You're going to see when we get to teams that turnovers were a little bit, once again, high, and you're going to see that reflected even in players like Tahad Pettiford tonight. In fact, he leads in turnovers tonight, probably wanting to assert himself just a little bit as things are kind of get going in the seasons. Maybe some things are a little bit more up in the air with some things we'll talk about on the roster later on our chat here today. But your leading scorer, no shock here, Keyshawn Hall, 22 points. He's probably going to be your most likely candidate for player of the game just based off of scoring. But let's look at the rest of this, and I think it's gonna hold based off of that. 22 points for Keyshawn Hall, 5 for 9 from the field, 1 for 5 from the 3-point arc, 11 for 14 from the free throw line, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 turnovers, 1 personal foul, 36 minutes of play. That's good. That's really good. Double digits, he's in 20 points in scoring. He has 11 rebounds for the double-double, 6 assists. I mean, he got as close as most people get on a typical night to a triple-double there. For those of you that aren't aware what that is they go into double digits in 3 different categories. Most of the time, you'll see that in those categories, the scoring, the rebounds, and the assist. Sometimes it's been steals or blocks or something like that. But Keyshawn Hall tonight, I think, is your favorite if we had input from everybody out there in the world that's Auburn fans. Keyshawn Hall is your player of the game in terms of just that stat line. Great with free throws, great, in terms of sharing the ball, scoring. He did it all tonight. No shot. Keyshawn Hall has been the guy up there at the top. He continues to make it more difficult to give him player of the game every time because he raises the bar every single time that he's out there on the court. So there's Keyshawn Hall. You have one other person in double digits tonight, and that's your 3rd leading scorer, Elijah Freeman. 19 points, 7 for 13 from the field, 2 for 6 from the 3-point arc, all of his free throws, 7 rebounds. He does foul the most, nearly fouls out tonight, 2 turnovers in 33 minutes of play. Really solid stat line from him, almost into 20s with the other 2 guys tonight, right? In fact, he was the 2nd leading scorer until that 3-pointer from Tahad Pettiford, based off of how that ended. But he's also got the 7 rebounds, solid job on his free throws. Elijah Freeman tonight also is worthy of some recognition. So those top 3 guys, Keyshawn Hall's stat line is just impressive, but we're used to that. But you look at those other 2, Tahad's doing what he should do on the road, what he showed us he's going to do. Elijah Freeman bringing that scoring edge as well for the Auburn Tigers tonight. Now, keep moving through some of the individual stats tonight. We'll work through as best we can in order. Sebastian Williams-Adams, Sway, with 8 points. He's 4 for 6 from the free throw line. Hey, man, that's some kind of improvement from what's happened previously with him. 4 rebounds, 5 assists. The crazy thing, and I think Coach Pearl talked about this in his press conference last week, is that the leading assist person at that point was Sway as a power forward, big man type of player. tonight, I think I said it correctly. Let me double check. An assist, 6 assists for Hall tonight, but 5 for Sway it's interesting. So he does a good job in that category as well. Contributing not only rebounding, points, assists, well-rounded game for Sebastian Williams-Adams, as he is going to be called on more and more this year with some stuff we'll talk about in just a little bit. The rest of your scorers tonight, Keyshawn Murphy, I skipped over him. He was actually with 9. Pretty decent night for him, 9 rebounds. He is 1 point and 1 rebound away from a double-double himself, so pretty solid numbers there for him. Looking at things throughout that, pretty good on his free throws too. Caden Madwood got on the board with the 3-pointer, so that was good to see him do that. You had Simon Walker early with 2 threes to get out there and get some minutes and show that what he is becoming known for is for his 3-point shooting, and people love seeing him out there. Blake Muselet gets in there as well. Philip Jovic in there for 16 minutes, 3 points, 5 rebounds. You'll also probably be seeing him more and more. Kevin Overton with 2. So Kevin Overton has had some really great games recently and goes back to a little bit of a quiet mode tonight in terms of his points scored. But as I've told you, Kevin Overton is very important to this team. He only gets 11 minutes tonight, which is interesting. I'm wondering if I missed something that happened. Was there an injury or missed or something like that? Illness, something like that. But anyway, so those are some quick individual stats and notes. Let's see what you guys are saying here about all of that. Sway is playing like a junior. Hard to believe he is a freshman. So that's a good point, WT. A lot of people on the broadcast commentary out there have talked about how ready he seemed to be able to play not just college basketball as a freshman, but also how he has been playing we haven't played SEC conference yet, but playing power college basketball. He is seen ready for the moment, still a freshman. See, that's the thing about freshman phenoms, right? They're phenomenal, but they're also freshmen. So they're not 100% there yet, but you can kind of see really what they're capable of down the line. Let's see here. This is from, I'll call him Mel. Play fast, but don't be in a hurry. Great advice for a sloppy Auburn tonight. It was a little bit sloppy at time. We'll see that in the team stats in a minute. Pettiford was really off his game. Commentators said that as well. And so this is why it's always important to not look at stats and look at how the stats actually happened. Because if you look at the 20 points for Tahad tonight and his free throws, he's pretty efficient with shooting the ball, 2 assists. It's the turnovers, I think, that's probably got people a little bit troubled with him tonight. Maybe trying to do a little bit too much at times. Statistically, he has a great night, but maybe not so much with all of that. Don't see anything else that you guys are saying individually, but we will certainly get to those team stats here in just a minute. But yeah, so if you have a player of the game that you'd like to give a shout out to, a great moment, favorite moment that we need to talk about, keep in mind, like these are reaction shows and these are meant to kind of analyze things. And we have a tendency to only focus on the negative side of things. There are things that you need to celebrate and things that you need to give credit and kudos to. It's always interesting to me that it's easier for us to critique than it is for us to praise, and something to think about for me as well, but also for you as the audience too. Okay, let's keep moving here into some team stat discussions this evening. First of all, your scoring got a little bit interesting there at the end of the first half, if not for, I think it was Tahad who hit the 3-pointer at the end of the first half, 38-43. So it could have been a 2-point margin there. Thankfully, it wasn't. But 40-49 in the second half, resulting in your final score of 92-78. Auburn beats Chattanooga in State Farm Arena. In the team stats, y'all know what we're going to do. Y'all know what I'm going to focus on, and y'all say it with me tonight. The big 3: free throws, turnovers, and rebounds. The reason I call those the big 3, if you win all 3 of those, there should not be a real reason you should be able to win the game if you win all 3 of those. Now, certainly margins of how you win those games certainly plays into that as well, but we'll talk about that a little bit. Here's a little bit of love for Mr. K. Hall, Mr. Keyshawn Hall, as we were talking about him earlier from Tim as well. I agree. Another great game for him, but we're kind of expecting to see that now. Here's your free throws tonight. 85% for Chattanooga. Got to credit them for that. It probably helped them stay in the game, even though they didn't shoot as many as Auburn. 78 for Auburn. Once again, where I want them to, my benchmark for them is 80%. They're right there. I can't really just get too upset about that. I do have high standards for free throws. 29 of 37, 78%. They don't win the category, but they're at least shooting well enough for that differential to not be too bad tonight. But that is a win in the category for Chattanooga. Turnovers is really where you see a negative for Auburn, and they lose this one too, 6-13. So doubled up on Chattanooga, or Chattanooga, I guess, doubled down, whatever you want to say. They had half as many turnovers. Auburn played a little bit sloppy, as some of you already said tonight. I 100% agree with that. It was very sloppy to watch at times. A little bit of context there, maybe. Long layoff. They've had some roster stuff. We'll get to that in a second as well. So there's been some distractions, things like that going on. Hopefully this will be the nice reset that they need as they go into a very important game coming up very, very, very soon. Finally, rebounds. And so we talked about this. You got to win these 3 to be in a really good position to win the game. Auburn has lost the other 2, but look at what they did in rebounds, 20-42. More than doubled them up on both of the almost both of the categories of rebounds, but in total 20-42. Such a wide differential there. That might be the stat of the game and kind of counteracts them winning those other 2 big 3 stats that I focus on in team stats this evening. So we'll come back to that if we don't find anything else. That is a clear picture of what else made the difference in this game for Auburn, because let's be real. Chattanooga was not truly ever out of this game. You look at 92-78, and yes, what's that, a 14-point win margin? It's not that bad. That's free throws being shot well at the end of the game sometimes to make it a double-digit win. So Auburn was challenged tonight. Auburn challenged itself at times tonight, but obviously they get the job done in the end. Let's look at the rest of the team stats. 49% for Auburn from the field. Almost 1 out of every 2 is going in. Not bad. 3-point percentage tonight is 37. Auburn wins both of those categories by a slim margin, so shooting a little bit better than Chattanooga overall, just not in the free throw category. We've already talked about turnovers and rebounds, points off of turnovers. Chattanooga won that by 3 tonight. You've got second chance points. Auburn doubled up Chattanooga, so that's another category where they made up some of that ground that they were lacking. Bench points tonight is very even, 26-31. Auburn wins that category. Points in the paint. So this is interesting. Talk about, like, you may have won the rebounding category, but points in the paint, you would think that would match up. But Chattanooga wins 36-30. Remember, Auburn won the rebounding margin 20-42. It's not saying that they have to exactly match. They don't here, but it's also awfully interesting when they don't. Fast break points, Chattanooga wins by a slim margin. Blocks, Auburn wins that one. No blocks at all for Chattanooga. But look at the steals, 20-1 for Chattanooga. That's interesting right there. And it kind of speaks to that turnover margin earlier in the game. Assists tonight, dead even with 17, so a lot better than it's been some other games for Auburn. The team shared the ball really well. Keyshawn Hall with 6, Sway with 5, Magwood with 3, Pettifer with 2. So you got to be really happy with the way that they did tonight. Could always be better, but certainly, it was better to see that. Like, that was something that was talked about in the press conference with Coach Stephen Pearl this past week. A little bit of a shout out to from WT to Chattanooga, calls them unorthodox. I think it threw us off the game. Yeah, and I keep referencing back to this press conference, and then we put those up from via the athletic department for you guys on our YouTube channel. I'd highly encourage you watch those. The coaches are going to give you a lot of information. They talked about how unorthodox and challenging they were going to be in general, not just about Auburn playing them, but how challenging they are to basketball teams in general. So good call out by WT there for that one. Looking forward to the next couple of games here. This schedule is always difficult, whether we're talking about the big name teams or the small name teams. small name is only a title we give them, only because people just don't recognize them as readily as you do the Purdue's and stuff because of what we think about in football and things like that. All right. I want to pick a team stat that made the biggest difference. I have two for you. It's obviously that 20 to 42 differential on rebounds. That's huge. That's probably what we should pick, but I found it very interesting. Even you would think I'd pick a category that Auburn won. 20 steals to 1 steal for Auburn and Chattanooga. So Chattanooga won that 10 to 1. Let me make that clear, 10 to 1. That's a pretty big margin right there. And that can kind of explain why we weren't able to pull away from Chattanooga. They might be unorthodox. They might be talented. But, when you're giving up or they're taking 10 steals from you, whether it's them taking it or you just being sloppy, that's a big stat right there. So I'm actually going to pick that one tonight. It's so easy to just point at those rebounds, which it's a big deal. Don't hear me not saying it is. But that stat of the game is the 20 steals for Chattanooga really is what kept this from being a blowout and a less interesting of a game, which I'm sure those of you that came to Atlanta and watched it are much happier that you got something interesting out of it there at the end of the game. Tim says, really liked Freeman's play tonight. He stepped up after being pulled from the starting lineup. So let's look at your starting lineup tonight, how it was set to start the game. Pettiford, Overton, Murphy, Hall, and Sebastian Williams-Adams. So, whether that was because of the way Elijah's been playing, maybe that's just trying to reward Sway a little bit and get him used to playing more minutes since he will be called on upon. Either way, he responds well tonight to coming off the bench. And you never know how that galvanizes or gives somebody that extra little bit of edge. So good call out there. Also a call out for Sway getting better with more minutes, and he's getting better at free throws too. I think we're all glad to see that, right? It's frustrating in general when Auburn doesn't do well in free throws, but when you see one player just really struggling, like Dylan had that stigma on him a couple of years, but he made up for it in droves other places. You were kind of not lenient on him for it, but understanding of that. Basically, Auburn led the whole way, the whole way pretty much. So that kind of speaks to it. Even with the struggles, with it getting within 2 points, I think Auburn had, its furthest lead was what the win margin was 14. I could be wrong. Largest lead I'm looking for, and I don't see it necessarily tonight. Largest lead of the night was, it's not updated on our thing tonight, but 16 at 9 minutes 41 seconds in the second half. There we go. So right around that point tonight. All right, so we're going to get some more commentary from you guys, things that we have that we want to bring up, and a roster note here as well. Before we do that, I want to remind you of a couple of things. So you can also post some more comments, questions, topics. We can do a little bit of future thinking about Purdue, but we're just mainly focused on wrapping up this game right now and the storylines and stats around it. Reminders for you guys for content here at E2C Network, what we've got coming up for you this week. Keep in mind, Sundays and Wednesdays are your big days where you can pretty much have something guaranteed for you. But let's start off with the very first thing. Tomorrow night, 9 Eastern time, the Auburn Experience live podcast recording, sports, culture, family. We're going to get into all of that. This is, I say this every week, but this is truly one of those weeks that's jam-packed. I have already made decisions to move certain topics that we should talk about this week to next week, just to make sure that we don't overextend ourselves. So plenty to talk about, and it's going to be a lot of football, believe it or not, even with the team not playing. There's been a lot of action, obviously, with the new regime coming in, going in. So we'll talk about it. Schedules, all kinds of stuff coming up on that. Join us 9 Eastern time tomorrow here on YouTube. Wednesday, the Auburn Family Night Show is back. We'll be taking that and your calls. So join us at 9 Eastern time. So Wednesdays and Sundays, don't miss them. 9 Eastern time, 8 Central. That's a live call-in show for you. You can always join the chat and just hang out in both of those different shows as well. We will be back for a post-game show next Saturday with Purdue. That's not on our little cue card yet, but keep in mind for that. And you never know. You should always be subscribed. We may have some other live streams and definitely plenty of content coming out throughout the week to talk about with you guys. Yeah, let's see what you guys left over here in the chat to start discussing. Let's start with Corey. Says, I'm not really feeling this team so far. If I had something to point out, it just looks like they're not gelling together like we see from other teams. I understand this is a totally new roster. Well, then if you understand that, then you understand why that is. And it's going to take some time for that to happen. We are judging them, especially based off of the recency biases of last year's team, where you returned basically everybody, and it showed. So much experience, so much maturity in terms of maturity of basketball, but it makes sense. So it's hard to separate those two things. I understand that completely, Corey. How about those refs for getting the second free throw? Yeah, we can always have fun with referee stuff here in the SEC, no matter the sport. It's a struggle at times for a few of them. All right, this is a great thing to bring up. Well, not a great thing to bring up, but we'll utilize this comment from Tim to get us. I've been pushing this all stream that I was going to talk about that. Heartbreaking that Oporum is out for the rest of the year. He's the 7-foot height. He will be missed. He was a force in the lane blocking shots. So this is a cautionary tale, first of all, before I get into what's going on, as much about this with some of y'all have got to really pay attention. And there's no one necessarily I'm addressing here in the chat with some of the things y'all say in comment sections, especially, after the fact. We had this one individual came in there just butchering Stephen because he wasn't playing Emeka as much as he thought he should. And I'm like, have you ever thought you may not have all the information? Now you kind of know. So keep that in mind in the future when you're saying these things on social media and online. It's easy to say them behind a anonymous account too. But obviously something was going on with Emeka Oporum. So the release came out today. Emeka is going to be out for the season with an undisclosed medical situation. They want him to focus on his health and everything like that. I guess I didn't pay attention to see if he was on the bench or anything tonight, or maybe he had something going on related to that. But obviously we first and foremost want to submit our prayers to him. If you are a believer as I am, and I believe that Emeka has attested to be, he would very much appreciate that. If you believe in the power of prayer as I do. So certainly sending those his way and hope that that is going to be as quickly resolved, although it is going to take the season from him. So there's that element of it, obviously the being concerned for his well-being, but there's also the element of, selfishly as Auburn, the team, Auburn, the fandom, what does this mean? There's already been this narrative out there that Auburn is undersized. And while I don't disagree that by other team standards, you might be undersized, but the narrative around that is that somehow makes them less of a team. That's not true whatsoever. You remember our starting center in 2019 was Anthony McLemore. And I believe Anthony was only 6'9" technically. He may have been 6'10". I could be wrong. So we didn't have a ton of height. We had Austin Wiley, but I think at that time, but he wasn't playing as regularly as Anthony was. So just, keep that in mind just because you don't have this height that everybody thinks you have to have, comparing it to last year doesn't necessarily mean that you are at the deficiency that it seems that you would be. It will show itself, especially when you're playing teams like Michigan and stuff and their type of height at times, but you can counteract that. Auburn's been undersized a lot during the Bruce Pearl era, and they have made it work for them. It was only towards the end where they looked a little bit more traditional. So keep that in mind. Obviously, it does create opportunities for Sway, for Jovic, others as well that are going to have to rotate in, that are going to fill some of that slot, and guys are going to have to play bigger, stronger, all that stuff. It's going to have to happen. So the important thing is Emeka, we're praying for you, man. Secondly, the team is going to have to adjust accordingly, and probably some of that you saw even tonight a little bit with how they're going to manage not having him rotate in, which he would have, I believe, started rotating in even more had this issue not been going on. And maybe fans sometimes just need to wait and see they realize they don't have all the information instead of criticizing the coach for not playing the dude. He just needs to, they need to make sure that the dude's okay to play. And obviously, there's a lot of speculation about what's going on. There's things I hear behind the scenes, but that's not my place to share any of that here in a public format. So, but what we will do is continue to pray for him and hope that he gets it figured out, and hope we will see Emeka back on the court next year. And we hope we see him out there on the bench the rest of the year. And I hope the Auburn family wraps their arms around them. All right. We did want to address that, certainly talk about all that at the end of our show. Auburn wins tonight. Final score for you, 92-78 over Chattanooga in State Farm Arena, part of the Holiday Hoops Giving event. Auburn wins this one again. Well done for Auburn, continuing to dominate. Well, for the most part. I've been to one where they did not dominate in that event. Tonight, your probably player of the game is Keyshawn Hall with his outstanding double-double stat line. And for me tonight, the stat of the game was the steals, which was actually 10-1 in favor of Chattanooga, which probably kept this from getting way out of hand for them. And that's a credit to them for making the most in opportunities that they had. Either way, it's a win for Auburn, 92-78. The Tigers are victorious, marching on to Purdue. That's a big one, folks, up in Indianapolis. Looking forward to talking with you for that next one. But until we do that, I want to remind you, as always, that the Auburn Creed asks you to do these things: to do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. We ask you to do the same. War Eagle.